My abusive ex beat me and kicked me out of the house. Then I suddenly developed the ability to see the value of any object. So I took the last $10 in my pocket, bought a piece of junk, and flipped it for tens of millions. A divorce. I can't take another day of this miserable life. Claire, I'd love to see how you survive without me. I clutched my head where Mark had smashed it, huddled in a corner, and screamed back at him with red-rimmed eyes. I'd rather be begging on the street than live under the same roof as a monster like you. Mark smirked, rubbing his wrist. I thought he was going to hit me again and flinched back, my body hitting a cold, hard wall. We'll get the divorce first thing tomorrow morning. A cruel smile played on his lips. But Claire, don't you dare come begging me to take you back. If you do, things will only get worse for you. The look on his face was so sinister it took me a moment to choke out. Don't worry. I'm never looking back. My parents had basically sold me to Mark for $3 million. Our family business had gone bankrupt, and Mark agreed to bail us out on the condition that I marry him. Only after the wedding did I discover he had a violent temper. The slightest thing that displeased him would earn me a beating. When I told my parents, all they said was, "A little roughhousing between a husband and wife is perfectly normal." I never spoke to them again after that. The next day, after we signed the divorce papers, I finally understood why Mark had looked so confident. He didn't give me a single cent. He even confiscated all my personal belongings. In the end, I was left wearing the clothes he'd graciously given me, with a $10 bill he'd pulled from his wallet and thrown at my feet. I wandered the streets aimlessly, like a rat. I eventually found myself at the 26th Street Flea Market. I used to come here all the time with my grandpa when I was little. After he passed away, I rarely visited. Since I was here, I figured I might as well take a look around. The flea market was just as I remembered it. Chaotic, a messy mix of treasures and trash, with all sorts of people gathered together. I did a quick loop and saw the exact same copper pot at 5 different stalls. And every single vendor claimed it was a one-of-a-kind piece from the 5 Dynasties period. I just smiled and declined. Some scams never change. You little punk, how dare you try to cheat me? Get back here. Suddenly, someone sprinted past, slamming me into a nearby post with tremendous force. Thump. I hit my head. My vision exploded with stars. When I rubbed my swelling forehead and tried to see who had run into me, something strange happened. Everything I looked at now had a string of numbers floating above it. For example, the vendor in front of me was wearing a shirt that read 55. And a silver cup I accidentally kicked at my feet read 25,000. A wild idea instantly popped into my head. Sir, how much for the shirt you're wearing? The vendor looked down at his shirt, scratched his head and chuckled. I think it was $55. My wife found it on sale somewhere. I picked up the silver cup from the ground. What about this? This. If you're serious, I'll let it go for 10,000. It's a quality piece from the late Ming Dynasty. Got it, thanks. I'll think about it. I already knew what was going on. I could see the true value of everything. The vendor's shirt was a cheap find his wife got him, worth exactly. But the silver cup, he wasn't lying. It was a real treasure. He was asking for 10,000, but its actual value was 25,000. With antiques, it's common for the value to be higher than the price. I had no idea why I suddenly had this power, but since fate had given it to me, I was going to make the most of it. So I started meticulously combing through the flea market. Everywhere I looked, I saw numbers. Suddenly, at a very inconspicuous stall, I spotted a number with a whole lot of zeros. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions, 10 million. As I got closer, I saw it was a toad with a coin in its mouth. The toad itself was labeled 5, but the coin read 10 million. Excuse me, how much for this toad? I asked, picking it up and weighing it in my hand. It felt like a heavy fake. The vendor didn't even look up. It's just a cheap little trinket. Pay whatever you want. I thought I'd misheard him, so I asked cautiously, how about $10? I honestly couldn't afford a penny more. To my surprise, the vendor readily agreed. Sure. Hardly anyone buys these things. If you like it, take it for $10. I quickly handed him the money, pocketed the toad, and left the flea market. Since buying the toad took my last $10, I had to walk to Harrison's Antiques. Harrison's was the most famous antique shop in New York City. The owner was incredibly wealthy and would pay any price for a good piece. It was a weekday, so the shop wasn't crowded. Only a young clerk was inside dusting. Seeing me, the clerk immediately came over. "Ma'am, are you here to buy or sell?" I glanced around the shop. The highest value I saw was $250,000. There was even a copy of the Nymph of the Luo River painting valued at $500. I instantly understood the owner's strategy, displaying fakes to avoid attracting robbers. "I'm here to sell. Is your boss in?" The clerk sized me up. "The boss isn't here right now. Can I see your item first?" I shook my head. "Just get your boss. I'm afraid you don't have the authority to handle what I have." The clerk eyed me skeptically, clearly not believing me. I pointed to the Nymph of the Luo River on the wall. "That's a fake. You want me to point out the others? I know your boss has the real stuff hidden away, and just puts these out for show. My piece is absolutely genuine. Please just get your boss." Only then did the clerk reluctantly go make a phone call. After the call, his attitude toward me improved dramatically. He even brought me a cup of tea. "The boss is on his way back. He'll be here shortly. If you wouldn't mind waiting." I nodded and accepted the cup, taking a sniff. First flush silver needle. Mark's favorite. I had just finished my tea when the boss arrived. She was a woman, so well maintained you couldn't guess her age. Her makeup was exquisite, and her graceful figure was wrapped in a cheapao that was clearly expensive. Every step she took radiated elegance. She extended a hand to me, an imperial green jade ring on her index finger catching the light. "Hello. I'm Eleanor, the owner of Harrison's Antiques." I shook her hand politely, discreetly glancing at her ring. A lot of zeros. Priceless. She was clearly a big deal. Eleanor smiled and led me into a private room. "And you are? Alex tells me you have a sharp eye and a special item in your possession." I took the toad out of my pocket and placed it in front of her. "My name is Claire. This is my item. I'd appreciate your expert opinion, Ms. Yu." Eleanor put on a pair of gloves, picked up the toad, and immediately removed the coin from its mouth. A pre-Qin Dynasty prototype coin. Fewer than 3 of these are known to exist. This is one of them. It's an exceptional piece indeed. "Are you looking to sell, Ms. Claire?" This Eleanor was even more impressive than I'd imagined. I simply smiled without saying a word. Eleanor held up 5 fingers. "I can offer you this much." "5 million? Are you joking, Ms. Yu?" I rested my chin on my hand and looked at Eleanor, a slight smile on my lips. Eleanor placed the coin back in the toad's mouth. "Then why don't you name a price, and I'll see if I can accept it." I toyed with the toad in my hand. 8 million. The toad comes free with the coin. It's worth at least $5 for the craftsmanship. The coin's true value was 10 million. If I asked for the full amount, Eleanor would have no profit margin. And that would make it harder to sell her anything in the future. Besides, 8 million was already a fortune for me at this point. Eleanor took a checkbook from a drawer, wrote out a check, and handed it to me. "You have a good sense of humor, Ms. Claire. In that case, I'll make it 8.5 million. Consider it a token of friendship. I hope you'll bring any future treasures here as well." I took the 8.5 million and left Harrison's Antiques feeling ecstatic. A moment later, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Eleanor. "Feel free to stop by Harrison's anytime, Ms. Claire." With 8.5 million in my pocket, I went to a 5-star hotel in the city center and booked a luxury suite for 6 months. Then I went to the high-end mall next door and bought new clothes and necessities. As I paid, watching thousands of dollars disappear for items marked 501,000, I suddenly felt a twinge of regret. From now on, I'm shopping on Amazon. Lying on the huge hotel bed, I was scrolling aimlessly through my phone when a news alert caught my eye. Lexington Auctions to hold 3rd auction of the year, numerous notables invited to attend. The article included photos of some of the collection pieces and brief bios of the major figures attending. Suddenly, on a photo of a Yuan blue and white porcelain vase, I clearly saw a number. And in the gallery of VIPs attending the auction, I saw someone completely unexpected. I zoomed in and checked several times to make sure I wasn't mistaken. It was the vendor who had sold me the toad with the coin. He was wearing a classic Mandarin collar jacket and holding 2 priceless walnuts, polished to a glossy sheen from years of handling. The caption below his photo read, "Mr. Harrison, veteran collector." He looked nothing like the scruffy man I'd bought the toad from at the flea market. 1,000 questions flooded my mind. I desperately wanted to go to this auction and find out what was going on. But the auction was a private, invitation-only event. Without an invitation, I couldn't get in. After thinking for a long time, I sent a text to Eleanor. "Ms. Yu, would you be willing to do me a $500,000 favor?" She replied almost instantly, "Just ask Ms. Claire. I need an invitation to the Lexington Auctions event." Her reply came back just as quickly. "Done." I suddenly felt like I'd overpaid by a lot. Eleanor was incredibly efficient. The next day, she had the invitation sent to the hotel's front desk. I picked up a beautifully wrapped gift box from reception. An invitation that costs $500,000 really is different, I thought. The presentation alone is worth $490K. I opened it to find a champagne-colored velvet dress, which looked like it was from a certain brand's latest collection. Lying on top of the dress was the invitation I'd been dreaming of. Crafted with gold foil and silk threads, it bore 3 elegantly written words. Claire. I sent a photo of the dress to Eleanor. Eleanor. A complimentary gift. You're welcome. Well, that sorted out my outfit for the auction. On the day of the event, I was the only one who arrived in a taxi. The security guard at the entrance gave me a strange look, and even pulled out some unknown device to scan my invitation before finally letting me in. Lexington Auctions was a gathering of the elite. Besides the top collectors and experts, I also saw many powerful figures from the worlds of politics and business. Not long after I sat down, someone took the seat next to me. "Ms. Claire, we meet again." That familiar voice. I turned my head and saw Eleanor. Eleanor was engrossed in the auction catalog. "You wanted to come to this auction so badly, Ms. Claire. You must be very interested in one of the items." I smiled. "I'm definitely interested. Just wanted to join in on the excitement." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "This is $500,000 worth of excitement you're joining." The auction began shortly. I scanned the room but didn't see Mr. Harrison, the man who sold me the toad. Did he have a last-minute change of plans? The first item was a Qing Dynasty pot with gold and pearl inlay, which showed a value of $680,000 and sold for $880. The second item was Fu Baoshir's painting Tiger and Dragon. Genuine works by Fu Baoshir rarely appear on the market anymore. I stared at the long string of zeros floating above it, enjoying the feast for my eyes. Many people had come specifically for this painting, and the bidding was fierce. It finally sold for $85 million. The next few items were ordinary collectibles, and the intense bidding died down. I craned my neck, waiting for that yuan blue and white porcelain. Eleanor seemed equally uninterested. I leaned over and whispered, "Ms. Yu, nothing's caught your eye?" Eleanor gave a noncommittal shrug. When the yuan porcelain finally appeared, to my astonishment, Eleanor raised her paddle. $20 million. I quickly grabbed her arm. "Are you crazy? Can't you see it's a fake?" I was certain this yuan porcelain was a fake, because the number above it was still. Eleanor paid me no mind and raised her paddle again. $30 million. I was getting anxious. Someone with her expertise shouldn't be making such a rookie mistake. "I can guarantee you that vase is a fake. Stop bidding." Eleanor finally spared me a glance. "Did you know that if an item from Lexington Auctions turns out to be a fake, they pay 10 times the price in compensation?" With that, she went back to bidding even more enthusiastically. She was determined to get that vase. In the end, she bought the 10,000 yuan porcelain for a staggering $66 million. I asked Eleanor if they really paid 10 times the price for fakes. She gave me a strange look. "They do, but you have to provide proof." My heart sank. I couldn't exactly tell them I had superpowers, could I? But I wasn't ready to give up. When Eleanor went to collect the vase after the auction, I shamelessly tagged along. A staff member wearing gloves carefully handed her the vase. She put on her own gloves and inspected it thoroughly. It's perfect. No issues. There were indeed no issues. The Yuan porcelain now had a long string of zeros above it. Wait, this wasn't the same vase from the auction. The one at the auction was a forgery. This one was authentic. I whipped my head around to look at Eleanor. Eleanor took off her gloves and met my gaze with a faint smile. She acted as if she had just handled an ordinary ceramic bottle, not a priceless Yuan porcelain vase. Seeing that I had something to say, she asked the staff member to leave us. Go on. I can see you've been dying to say something. As soon as the door closed, I spilled everything. The Yuan porcelain at the auction was definitely a fake, but the one you just inspected is real. Don't you think that's weird? Why would Lexington Auctions pull a stunt like this? Eleanor watched me thoughtfully, making me a little uncomfortable. You have a remarkable eye, Miss Claire. I wonder if your nerve is just as strong. I didn't quite understand what she was implying. Ms. Yu, perhaps you could just be direct. Eleanor smiled. Come on. I'll introduce you to someone. I followed her through 9 hidden doors and past a small flowing stream. Only then did I realize there was a whole other world hidden inside Lexington Auctions. She told me to enter the last door by myself. I stared at the door, hesitating, my searching gaze darting back and forth across Eleanor's face. Eleanor pushed me toward the door. Don't worry, there are no monsters inside. I cautiously pushed the door open and stepped into the dimly lit room. It was a tea room. Every single furnishing was priceless. Even the small stool by the tea table had a 128,000 floating above it. For a moment, the sheer number of zeros dazzled me. Miss Claire, we meet again. I looked toward the voice. Perhaps I should call him Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison sat at the tea table, skillfully prying a small piece from a tea cake with a tea knife and placing it on a dish. Then he focused on warming the cups, adding the tea, and pouring the water. Even after all this, he didn't look up at me. After a moment, he poured the evenly colored tea from the fairness pitcher and pushed a steaming tasting cup toward me. Have a seat. How does it feel to turn $10 into 8 million? I took the tea but didn't drink it. Mr. Harrison, if you knew the value of the toad with the coin, why did you sell it to me so easily? It wasn't because you looked pitiful in your shabby clothes, was it? The man across from me chuckled and gestured to the cup in my hand. The tea won't be as good if it gets cold. Have a taste. I skeptically lifted the cup, sniffed it, and took a small sip. Just one sip was enough to know it was top grade. Mark used to be a tea connoisseur and had forced me to learn a thing or two. Mr. Harrison added more water to the gaiwan. How is it? I was stunned for a moment, at a loss for words. It's excellent tea. Mr. Harrison poured himself another cup. It's golden melon pu'er that Eleanor just acquired a few days ago. Besides the one in the Palace Museum, this is the only other one in existence. Golden melon pu'er. Those words resounded in my mind. No wonder when I glanced at the tea cake earlier, I saw a long string of zeros. I had thought my eyes were playing tricks on me after being overwhelmed by all the numbers in this room. I immediately picked up my cup and finished the rest of the tea. It really is excellent tea. A bit of a waste on me though. Mr. Harrison's gaze rested on my face, open and full of inquiry. A discerning eye like yours, Miss Claire, is worthy of this cup of tea. I sold that toad with the coin from my stall a total of 3 times. The first person asked for 2 million, the second for 5 million. After they got the money, they never appeared in the antique world again. I thought they were just opportunistic young people with a bit of a lucky eye. I listened quietly as Mr. Harrison calmly recounted the story. The third person, you, Miss Claire, asked for 8.5 million. Then you used $500,000 to buy an invitation to the Lexington auction. At the auction, you told Eleanor that the Yuan porcelain was a fake. But when Eleanor inspected the vase afterward, you said the one she was holding was real. So, what do you think? Is there something wrong with Lexington Auctions? After saying all this, Mr. Harrison looked at me, seemingly waiting for my answer. He knew everything I'd done since buying the toad, and clearly had a close relationship with Eleanor. If I wasn't mistaken, Mr. Harrison was the true owner of Harrison's Antiques. According to him, this wasn't the first time the toad had been bought from a pile of junk. but it always ended up back where it started. That toad with the coin was like the bait on a fishing hook. Mr. Harrison was waiting for the right person to bite. From the way he was scrutinizing me, I suddenly had the feeling that I was the one who had taken the bait. Yes, I think there's something wrong with Lexington auctions. With my limited knowledge, I really can't understand why an auction of this caliber would feature a fake Yuan porcelain vase. Even if Ms. Yu ended up with the real one. You had Ms. Yu bring me here and offered me priceless golden melon puer. I assume you didn't do all this just to tell me the story of the toad with the coin. Mr. Harrison rubbed the rim of his gaiwan with one hand and tapped lightly on the table with the other. Miss Claire, you are the second person I've admired in all these years. I instinctively asked. And the first was Eleanor? As I expected, Mr. Harrison nodded. You're a smart woman, Miss Claire. Why don't you guess who the real owner of Lexington Auctions is? The moment he said it, I knew. It's you, isn't it? He neither confirmed nor denied it. Pieces of a puzzle I had overlooked suddenly clicked into place in my mind. So the Yuan porcelain at the auction really was a fake, wasn't it? You went through all this trouble, setting one trap after another, leading me step by step into your game. What exactly do you want? Miss Claire, Mr. Harrison said, holding up a hand. You're wrong. I didn't lead you into this game. You walked into it yourself. He took an exquisite box from a drawer. Opening it, he revealed the coin that had been pried from the toad's mouth. The coin had been cleaned and now glowed with an ancient luster. Mr. Harrison picked it up, tossed it in his palm, his expression unreadable. In all these years, only you, Miss Claire, have seen through 2 of my 3 tests. All things arise from causes and conditions. All things cease due to causes and conditions. The fact that you are sitting here with me today, sharing this tea, means you are willing to be a player in this game. His eyes, filled with the wisdom of ages, held a look of absolute certainty and confidence. I suddenly felt a burning curiosity to know what lay behind this elaborate scheme. What do you want me to do, Mr. Harrison? I just need you to be my eyes, to help me appraise things. You can name any price. The request was almost too simple for me, the terms too tempting. I took a deep breath and looked around at the collection. I smiled. In that case, I'm honored to accept your offer, Mr. Harrison. I finished a few more cups of the golden melon puer, my hands trembling slightly. Mr. Harrison then dismissed me. As I was leaving, he said, "Don't stay in the hotel anymore. I have plenty of empty houses. I'll have Eleanor show you around. Pick whichever one you like." I didn't refuse. At the door I paused. After a moment's thought, I turned back and asked him, "You said there were 3 tests. What was the other one?" "The third test is the human heart." Eleanor spent the entire day showing me houses. I was exhausted and dizzy, because Mr. Harrison owned an incredible number of properties, and every single one was huge. Finally, I couldn't walk another step. I collapsed onto the sofa in the back room of Harrison's Antiques, gulping down an orange soda. Eleanor also had a straw in her mouth, taking small sips. When we had nearly finished our drinks and I'd caught my breath, she asked, "So, have you decided where you want to live?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I'm terrible at making decisions." "Come on, I'll show you one last place." Today, Eleanor was wearing a tracksuit with her hair in a high ponytail, looking full of energy. I still preferred her in a cheapao. It gave her an aura of untouchable elegance. Not like now, where she looked ready to roll up her sleeves and drag me off the sofa. This last place wasn't far. We went out the back door of Harrison's Antiques, and a grand, 3-courtyard residence appeared before us. Eleanor pushed the gate open. "Come take a look. I live here. There are 2 empty rooms, pick whichever one you like." In the main courtyard stood 2 ancient whitewood trees. After all I'd seen, I was now numb to long strings of numbers. I could tell with my eyes closed that everything in this courtyard was priceless. This is it. With you around, Ms. Yu, I'll feel safer, won't I? Eleanor lived in the main house, and the rear building was for the staff. I chose the east wing, which got more sunlight. Eleanor sent someone to the hotel to fetch my few belongings. "If you need anything else, just ask. Since you're living at Harrison's now, you can start helping out at the shop tomorrow. It'll be a good chance for me to see your skills in action. The Peking duck from Harrison's kitchen was absolutely divine, with crispy skin and tender meat. I mumbled with my mouth full of duck, "Don't worry, Ms. Yu. I promised Mr. Harrison I'd be his eyes. From now on, Harrison's is my home. By the way, meals are included, right?" Eleanor crossed her legs and gave me a sidelong glance. "Of course." As we were talking, a clerk knocked on the door. "Boss, there's a visitor." The staff at Harrison's were all handpicked by Mr. Harrison himself. They were perfectly capable of handling small acquisitions on a daily basis. Only when a major deal they couldn't handle came along, or when someone like me showed up to challenge the place, would they call for Eleanor. I followed Eleanor to the front hall. I immediately spotted a greasy-faced middle-aged man sitting in a grand armchair. When he saw Eleanor, he immediately stood up. "Ms. Yu." "Mr. Vargas, good to see you. What treasure have you brought for me this time?" Mr. Vargas looked from me to Eleanor. "And this is?" Eleanor smiled. "My assistant. She's one of us." Hearing this, Mr. Vargas seemed to relax, grinning widely. "The item is a bit large. Would you mind coming with me, Ms. Yu?" I was nearly blinded by his mouthful of gold teeth. He wasn't afraid of attracting thieves at all. Half an hour later, Eleanor and I were sitting in the glitzy living room of Mr. Vargas's home. Mr. Vargas mysteriously had someone bring in a huge chest. A string of numbers floated above it. 298635. What an odd number. Just as I thought this was the value of the item inside, Mr. Vargas opened the chest. The number I saw suddenly changed to. Looks like Mr. Vargas's treasure was about to be a bust. Mr. Vargas, completely unaware, cheerfully introduced the contents of the chest to Eleanor. A Northern Wei Dynasty terracotta warrior. A form never before seen on the market. Experts have authenticated it. It's genuine. "Ms. Yu, take a look and see if it can fetch this price." He crossed his index fingers to form a 10. In the trade, this meant 10 million. Eleanor put on her gloves, examined it, then turned and gave me a look. I subtly shook my head. Eleanor took off her gloves and looked at Mr. Vargas with a cool expression. "This thing is probably worth less than your gold teeth." "What do you mean?" Mr. Vargas's face was a mask of panic, his regional accent slipping out. "Impossible. It was authenticated by experts." "Since it was authenticated by experts, why did you need me to look at it, Mr. Vargas?" Eleanor leisurely sipped her tea and casually asked, "Which experts?" Mr. Vargas scratched his bald head. "Experts from the museum. Several of them. I saw their credentials and I had a friend check, they're real." Eleanor took out her phone and dialed a number. "Director Evans, I'd like to ask about a few people." She recited the names of the experts Mr. Vargas had mentioned. Someone on the other end said something. Eleanor hummed in agreement. "Thank you. I owe you one. I'll treat you to dinner sometime." After hanging up, she looked at Mr. Vargas with a very serious expression. "Those men, as if by arrangement, all resigned 2 days ago." Mr. Vargas was stunned. He plopped down on the chest. "So I've been scammed? Experts can be scammers too." Eleanor nodded. Judging by the quality of the forgery and the so-called expert authentication, this was a premeditated scam. "I'd suggest calling the police," I added. Mr. Vargas still couldn't wrap his head around it. "But how can this be a fake?" Eleanor pointed to the varying cracks on the warrior's surface. "If you master the techniques for clay, shape, glaze, workmanship, and aging, and then run it under an X-ray, it's not hard to create a convincing fake." Mr. Vargas looked completely lost, as if Eleanor were speaking a foreign language. "What's an X-ray?" Experiments have shown that irradiating a ceramic glaze with X-rays can age its appearance by about 200 years per second. Mr. Vargas seemed to half understand, but at least he now knew the terracotta warrior was a complete fake. Damn it. Those bastards scammed me. I paid 8 million for a piece of junk. When I find them, I'll skin them alive. Eleanor stood up to leave. "Mr. Vargas, the people who sold you this warrior are probably no longer in the country." Mr. Vargas's eyes widened in disbelief. "So I just have to eat this loss." "Mr. Vargas, you're not new to the antiques game. This business is unforgiving. There's no room for even the slightest error in judgment. Eleanor's beautiful eyes swept over Mr. Vargas's furious face. Fortunately, you have deep pockets. Consider it an expensive lesson. Mr. Vargas's face fell. Sigh, I was hoping to make a nice profit. I stood beside Eleanor and nudged her with my elbow, gesturing with my eyes toward the chest that held the warrior. Eleanor immediately smiled at Mr. Vargas and said, My assistant seems to be very interested in the chest you used for the warrior. This chest? Mr. Vargas was very surprised. The chest came free with the warrior. If you like it, just take it. I'll be counting on you to lend me your expert eye in the future, Ms. Yu. I'm never trusting those damn experts again. And so, I shamelessly dragged the large chest away with me. Back at the shop, I looked at Eleanor triumphantly. Well, the trip wasn't a complete waste. This chest is worth 300,000. Eleanor replied dryly. It seems you know a thing or two about wood as well, Miss Claire. I feigned modesty. A little. Not as much as you, Ms. Yu. Later, Eleanor sold the chest to a foreigner for 500. When Mr. Vargas found out, he was beside himself with regret all over again. Ever since the Lexington auction, Mr. Harrison had vanished as if into thin air. I had subtly and not so subtly asked Eleanor about him a few times, but all I got was, I never pry into Mr. Harrison's private affairs. So much for my prying. These last few days, Eleanor hasn't been around either. Suddenly, I was the one in charge of the entire shop. When there were no customers, I'd lie back on the wicker chair in the courtyard, soaking up the sun. It was pure bliss. Miss Claire, there's a customer in the front hall. Could you please take a look? The staff at Harrison's were all very respectful toward me, probably because Eleanor had told them to be. I moved the fan from my face, stood up, and stretched. Coming. As I walked into the front hall, I heard a commotion. It's really not possible. Please don't make things difficult for us. This item really isn't worth much. Here, our boss is here now. Ask her if you don't believe us. The clerk pulled me over as if I were his savior, giving me a pleading look. I cleared my throat. What's going on? The clerk whispered in my ear. This lady brought in a pair of Hercules cups. The market price for these is about 50,000, but she claims they're a family heirloom and won't take less than $1 million. Isn't that just outrageous? I looked at the woman standing before me. Her clothes looked a bit old, and she seemed very anxious, clutching a box tightly in her arms. That box must hold the Hercules cups. Hercules cups were a type of drinking vessel used by nobles during the Northern and Southern dynasties. They were named for their resemblance to Indra's Vajra and their extreme weight, which required considerable strength to lift. Thus the name Hercules cups. They were made from various materials, from bronze to jade. Although they were from the same period, the price varied wildly depending on the material. A few years ago, a pair of gold Hercules cups studded with gems appeared at a Lexington auction. If I remember correctly, they sold for as much as 50 million. The clerk just said this woman's pair was worth about 50,000. That meant they were almost certainly the most common type, bronze. Ma'am, could I please see your item? The woman looked at me doubtfully. You're the boss. Are you authorized to make a decision? Under the clerk's expectant gaze, I steeled myself and nodded. The woman took the pair of Hercules cups out of the box. As she did, she murmured, "This is a family heirloom, passed down for generations. It's very old." As expected, it was a pair of bronze cups. A line of numbers floated clearly above them. The clerk had even overestimated by $1. I put on gloves and pretended to examine the cups. "Ma'am, the items are indeed from the Northern and Southern dynasties, but their value is really only about $50,000. Bronze cups are quite common on the market right now. You can ask around. I guarantee no other shop will offer you more than my price." The woman's face immediately fell. How can it only be 50,000? An antique from the Northern and Southern dynasties is only worth that much. I placed the cups back in the box. "Ma'am, the value of an antique lies in its rarity. When something is common, it's not worth much, no matter how old it is. Please consider it. $52,000. If that works for you, we'll take them." The woman stared at the Hercules cups in the box, her brow furrowed in a deep frown, looking extremely troubled. The room was silent. Suddenly, she looked up, her eyes welling with tears, her voice trembling. "You're the boss, can't you really add a little more? This is an heirloom passed down from my great-grandfather." "I'm sorry, 50,000 is the highest I can offer." The woman wiped away a tear. "Then I'll go back and discuss it with my family." I handed her a tissue. "Of course. If you decide to sell, you're always welcome at Harrison's." For some reason, as I watched her dejected figure walk away, I found myself following her. The woman seemed to be in a hurry. I kept a distance of about 15 feet, following her through several alleys. Finally, I watched her enter a rather inconspicuous courtyard gate. Seeing no one around, I pulled my hat down and quietly slipped into the courtyard. The yard was cluttered with all sorts of miscellaneous items. Faded clothes hung on a makeshift drying rack made of bamboo poles. I tiptoed like a thief, each step careful and deliberate. I was afraid of knocking something over and making a sound. As I got closer, I could hear voices from inside the house. A woman was speaking in a low, sobbing voice. "Dad, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't insisted on marrying that bastard, he wouldn't have scammed us out of all our money. It's all my fault." "It's not your fault, my child." An old, strained voice spoke with great effort. Yet he was still trying his best to comfort his daughter. Who would have thought that animal could do such a thing? "Dad." The woman broke down, crying uncontrollably. She sniffled and said between sobs, "I asked around. The Hercules Cup's great-grandpa left us can sell for about 50,000. That should hold us over for a while. I'll go sell them tomorrow. There's no point in me dragging on at this age. Don't waste your great-grandfather's heirloom." "Dad, don't say that. I'll figure out the money. You just focus on getting better." I didn't stay to hear the rest. The wind picked up, rustling the old clothes on the bamboo poles. I picked up a t-shirt that had fallen to the ground, dusted it off, and hung it back up. The clerk looked puzzled when I returned. "Miss Claire, when did you go out?" I smiled. "Just stepped out for some fresh air." The next day, as expected, the woman returned with the Hercules Cups. The clerk wasn't there, it was just me. The woman looked worried. "Boss, I'd like to sell this. 50,000, right?" I took out the cups, held them up to the light, and examined them carefully. The woman watched me anxiously, unconsciously wringing her hands. "Boss, you promised me yesterday. $50,000. You're not going to back out, are you?" "I won't. Don't worry." I put the cups down and took out my phone. "Do you have your bank card number? I'll take these cups. $1 million. I can transfer it directly." Yes. Where is it? Let me find it." The woman fumbled in her bag for a while and found a worn-out bank card. As she handed it to me, she suddenly froze. "Boss, how much did you just say?" I smiled. "My apologies. I made a mistake yesterday. Although your cups are bronze, the material is superior and the design is rare. They're worth $1 million. The woman's eyes lit up, and she grabbed my hand excitedly. "That's wonderful, wonderful. I knew my great-grandfather's heirloom couldn't be worth only 50,000. I transferred the money to her bank account. The woman took out an old flip phone and a pair of glasses from her bag. She stared at the numbers in the text message, carefully counting them several times. Finally, a smile appeared on her face. I placed the Hercules Cups back in my room. That evening, Eleanor returned. She came to my room for dinner, and her sharp eyes immediately spotted the box with the Hercules Cups. "I don't remember seeing this box in here before. Did you acquire something good? Claire, you're lining your own pockets, aren't you?" While munching on a golden, crispy spring roll, I casually grabbed the box and tossed it to her. "It is a good piece. Maybe you'd consider buying it from me, Ms. Yu?" Eleanor, half doubting, opened the box. Hercules Cups? And bronze ones, worth no more than 50,000. What's so good about these? How much did you pay? I held up my index finger and waggled it. 10,000? That's a good deal. 1 million. I finished the last spring roll and wiped my mouth with satisfaction. Eleanor's eyelid twitched. Her face was a mask of disbelief. "Claire, are you blind or have you lost your mind?" "Neither blind nor crazy. I know this thing is only worth 50,000. Eleanor was even more confused. I had never seen such a bewildered expression on her beautiful face. But a person's life is priceless. Under Eleanor's shocked gaze, I told her the whole story. After hearing everything, Eleanor's expression finally returned to normal. I didn't realize you had such a charitable heart, Miss Claire. Good deeds lead to good karma, right? So you're a Buddhist, Miss Claire? I raised an eyebrow at her. My grandpa was. He taught me. With Eleanor back, I immediately became an idle person. No more minding the shop. I started frequenting the flea market whenever I had nothing better to do. After a few trips, I actually managed to find several good items. I then sold them to Harrison's at a friendly price. My bank account balance shot up to 30 million. One day, after a stroll through the flea market, I bought a large copper pot for $100, planning to make hot pot. Just as I was about to leave, I caught a glimpse of a familiar stall set up in a familiar corner. The vendor was the familiar Mr. Harrison. I walked over and squatted in front of his stall, casually picking up a snuff bottle. Sir, how much for this? Mr. Harrison saw it was me. If you like it, you can have it for $10. I feigned shock. $10? That's too expensive. This thing only costs a few bucks to make. If you sell it to me for 10, I'll barely make a few cents on resale. Take it. It's a gift. Mr. Harrison chuckled and tossed the snuff bottle to me. I heard you did a money-losing deal out of your own pocket a few days ago, Miss Claire. Paying $1 million for something worth $50,000. By any calculation, that's a loss. My legs were tired from squatting, so I spotted an empty stool next to him and sat down, joining him in watching the stall. That was days ago. Your information is a bit outdated, Mr. Harrison. There's no such thing as profit or loss. Antiques have no intrinsic value, but the human heart does. I used the extra $950,000 to buy that woman's filial piety. I made $8 million from selling your toad with the coin. That money is just a bunch of numbers to me. But for some people, it can save a life. Speaking of which, I should thank you, Mr. Harrison. It was all thanks to your $8 million. I was merely paying it forward. Mr. Harrison looked me over for a moment, as if studying a fascinating object. Antiques have no intrinsic value, but the human heart does. Well said. You are indeed the person I chose, Miss Claire. I finished polishing a copper axe for him. If you keep complimenting me, I'm going to get embarrassed. After finishing his work, Mr. Harrison kept staring at my large copper pot. He stared so intently I felt awkward. We're having hot pot tonight. Are you coming? Yes. Mr. Harrison immediately started packing up his stall. Claire, do you remember the third test I told you about? You passed. That night, Mr. Harrison somehow procured a whole salt marsh lamb, air freighted from Ningxia. With Eleanor joining us, the three of us gathered around the large copper pot for a hot pot feast. The sesame dipping sauce, I was told, was a secret recipe passed down through Eleanor's family. It was incredibly fragrant. Perhaps because he was in a good mood, Mr. Harrison told me the story of him and the coin toad. The toad, with the coin in its mouth, was how he earned his first pot of gold through his own keen eye. So much so that later, after he had amassed a great fortune, he went to great lengths to buy it back. As Mr. Harrison told this story, Eleanor listened quietly beside him. Occasionally, she would drift off, lost in thought. After we had mostly finished eating, Mr. Harrison took a call and left in a hurry. Not long after, Eleanor also put down her chopsticks. I'm heading out. You finish up, don't let it go to waste. She still hadn't returned by the time I finished the remaining 2 large plates of lamb. After cleaning up, I lay in the courtyard stargazing. The midsummer night was exceptionally quiet, with only the occasional cool breeze carrying the chirp of cicadas, making one feel utterly relaxed. But this peaceful moment was short-lived, shattered by the sudden ringing of my phone. I glanced at the screen, and a familiar number flashed before my eyes. It was my parents. I waited a moment before answering. My mother's loud voice shot through the phone. Claire, where are you? Did you and Mark get a divorce? I replied with a flat, aha. You foolish girl. What's wrong with Mark? How are you going to survive after divorcing him? My father chimed in from the side. Exactly. At your age, who's going to want you after a divorce? Oh, if no one wants me, no one wants me. I'm fine on my own. That won't do. You need to go apologize to Mark right now. Dad, Mom. I scoffed. Is it because he stopped giving you money after we divorced? Silence on the other end. After a moment, my mother's tone was noticeably uneasy. What are you talking about, dear? We're just worried you'll have no one to rely on after the divorce. Mark is a great guy, successful, and a family man. You mean he takes care of your family, right? I exposed her lie without mercy. You've known what kind of person Mark is all along. In 5 years of marriage, you never once asked if I was okay. Mark is violent. He hit me regularly and you just said, what couple doesn't fight? The truth is, you don't care if I get a divorce or not. You only care that once I'm divorced, you can't ask my ex-husband for money anymore. Claire, we're your parents. Would we ever hurt you? How could you think that way? Cornered, my mother grew angry and defensive. Enough. I cut her off. Aren't you tired of acting all the time? You sold me to Mark for $3 million back then. Now I'll give you $3 million. After this, we go our separate ways. Don't contact me again. My mother was furious. You. Oh, and spend it wisely. There won't be any more. I hung up. The thought of them fuming on the other end made me smile. I transferred the promised $3 million to their bank account, and then I blocked both of their numbers. That $3 million stung a little. I thought spending the money would solve my problems, but the next day, Mark actually showed up at Harrison's Antiques. Eleanor had acquired a rubbing of a Tang Dynasty calligraphy masterpiece, the Diamond Sutra. I had been practicing my own calligraphy with it in my free time. I had just finished writing. No self, no others, no living beings, no soul. As I bent down to blow the ink dry, a shadow fell over my desk. Eleanor, move it. You're blocking my light. Claire, you've done well for yourself. Found a new sugar daddy already, have we? The chilling voice came from above me. The tone was mocking. It was Mark. I flinched reflexively, instinctively backing away. How did he know I was here? Mark surveyed the furnishings of Harrison's Antiques. Your mother told me you gave them $3 million. Where did you get that kind of money? Don't tell me you earned it working here. He wasn't exactly wrong. I watched him warily. What's it to you? It's not my business, no. But your parents asked me to check on you. They're worried you've gone down the wrong path. The man who had abused and beaten me every day was now standing before me. The words coming out of his mouth were the most ridiculous joke I'd ever heard. Mark, the only wrong path I've ever gone down in my life was you. And my parents were the ones who pushed me onto it. Mark was over 6 feet tall, and his presence was naturally intimidating. He casually picked up the paperweight I was using and tapped it against the palm of his other hand. Watching the paperweight in his hand, my mind flashed with images of being beaten black and blue with a baseball bat. Alarm bells went off in my head. What do you want? I'm telling you, this place is covered in cameras. Don't even think about trying anything. Claire, you think this place can protect you forever? Mark's sharp gaze swept over me, like a tiger staring at its prey. I have all the time and patience in the world. You'll come crawling back to me. He left with that threat, leaving me speechless. We were divorced, but he was still haunting me. After thinking it over, I called Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison wasn't surprised. He even guessed I needed a favor. Go on, what's happened? I know I shouldn't bother you with such a small matter. Claire, Mr. Harrison interrupted, his voice laced with a smile. Actually, I've been waiting for you to ask me for something. It's not good for a person to be too desireless. Besides, in our line of work, the appraiser is the most important person. After the help you've given me, you could never be a bother. Since Mr. Harrison put it that way, I didn't hold back. Could you help me take care of someone? Your ex-husband? I wasn't surprised he knew. Yes. Mr. Harrison agreed quickly. Fine. You'll never see him again. And just like that, I never saw Mark again. Been quiet lately, hasn't it? Eleanor was clacking away on a golden abacus. I leaned against the doorframe, yawning. Yeah, almost a little boring. You won't be bored for long. She finished her calculations, stood up, stretched, and beckoned to me. Come on, let's go pack. Go where? I was confused. Why were we suddenly leaving? Eleanor turned and gave me a knowing smile. I'm taking you to see the world's most advanced forgery techniques. 2 hours later, I was sitting on Mr. Harrison's private jet, completely bewildered. Eleanor sat across from me, sipping a glass of red wine, and casually flipping through a magazine. Want a glass? She asked. I don't drink, so I waved my hand. What exactly is going on? You'll find out when we get there. Get some rest. I woke up as the plane was landing. I looked out the window at the endless ocean. A thought suddenly occurred to me. A private island? Eleanor gave a slight nod. When the cabin door opened, a black van was already waiting below. The driver seemed to know Eleanor well. Ms. Yu, the boss is already waiting for you. The island sun was blinding. Eleanor pulled a pair of sunglasses from somewhere and tossed them to me. Take Ms. Claire to the hotel first. I looked at her, puzzled. You're not coming? Eleanor was typing furiously on her phone, not even looking up. You go ahead. I have other things to take care of. Walking into the hotel lobby, I scanned the area before spotting Mr. Harrison. He was talking to someone, but when he saw me, he waved me over. Old Russo, let me introduce you. This is Claire. Only then did I notice the man Mr. Harrison was talking to. He was rather unremarkable in appearance, but his clothes, his watch, and even the glasses he wore, every single item had an astronomical number floating above it. I understood. An understated tycoon. I smiled and greeted him. Mr. Russo, a pleasure to meet you. Mr. Russo didn't even look me in the eye. His tone was dismissive. Harrison, this young lady looks so young. Is she really as good as you say? Mr. Harrison chuckled. Eleanor is young too, isn't she? You'll see just how good Claire is later tonight. Oh, come on, we've watched Eleanor grow up. That's different. Claire just arrived. Let her go rest. Mr. Harrison gave me a look. Your room is ready. Someone will show you up. There's a dinner at the Celestial Fragrance Pavilion on the 2nd floor at 7 p.m. Be sure to attend. With that, he led Mr. Russo away. I stayed in my room until 6. As I took the elevator to the 2nd floor, I suddenly realized that this seemingly deserted hotel was actually full of people, and all of them were headed to the same destination as me. The Celestial Fragrance Pavilion. The entire interior of the Celestial Fragrance Pavilion was designed in a classical style. With carved beams and painted rafters, it felt like being inside a grand palace. I saw Mr. Harrison and Eleanor already seated. The table was laden with a sumptuous feast of rare and expensive ingredients. On the stage at the front, a row of display cases stood neatly aligned, currently empty. I did a quick count. There were about 8, each labeled with a number. The seat next to Eleanor was empty, clearly saved for me. After sitting down, I gestured toward the stage with my chin and whispered, "Isn't this a dinner party? It doesn't look like one." Eleanor whispered back, "You can eat if you're hungry. The main event won't start for a little while." My mouth watered at the sight of an elaborate seafood dish on the table, and I couldn't resist trying a bite. The sauce was rich, the texture soft and delicious, a perfect collision of land and sea. I lifted the lid of a soup tureen. What's the main event? Eleanor ignored the feast, her eyes fixed on the stage. It's a new game that's become popular since forgery techniques have gotten so advanced. You'll see. As she spoke, the lights on the stage came on. 8 beautiful women in high slit kipeos walked out, each carrying a tray covered with a cloth. They removed the cloths and placed the items from the trays into the display cases. Before you are 8 Yohen Tenmaku tea bowls. Please place your bids on the corresponding number, a mechanical voice announced. If I remembered correctly, the Yohen Tenmaku tea bowl was a unique masterpiece from the Southern Song dynasty that had ended up in Japan after a long and complicated history. How could there be 8 of them here? And among the 8, one of them had a long string of zeros floating above it. It had to be the genuine article. While I was pondering this, the crowd below had already started bidding furiously. Number 1, 5 million. Number 4, 3.5 million. Number 6, 7 million. Number 1, 8 million. Get it now. Eleanor leaned closer and whispered. 8 identical items are laid out. You pick the one you think is real and make a bid. Highest bidder wins. Only after you win do you get to confirm if it's real. This isn't a dinner party, it's a high-stakes gamble of skill and wealth. So, want to give it a try? Mr. Harrison gestured for Eleanor to pass me the paddle. Bid on whatever you want. I toyed with the paddle in my hand, waiting until the bidding had mostly settled before raising it. Number 7, 12 million. In the end, every one of the tea bowls sold for tens of millions. The most expensive, number 1, went for 20 million. Unfortunately, it was a fake. The items were delivered to the buyers on the spot. The middle-aged man at the table next to mine had won number 4. I snuck a peek. It was indeed impossible to tell the difference with the naked eye. Next, the women in Kipeos brought out 8 gilt bronze Maitreya Buddha statues. I had seen the real one at the Met a few years ago. Now, seeing the countless zeros floating above one of the statues, I couldn't help but question my reality. Same process. I won the only authentic piece for 15 million. I didn't participate in the bidding for the next few items, just watched as the crowd fought over fakes. It wasn't until a rare bronze wine vessel appeared that my eyes lit up. Unlike before, it seemed someone had come specifically for this item. They fought me tooth and nail for the same number. In the end, all the other numbers had been sold, but number 7 was driven up to the sky-high price of 60 million. When the other bidders' offer got infinitely close to the number floating above the vessel, I gave up. Mr. Harrison, seeing I had stopped bidding, looked surprised. Why did you stop? I shook my head. It's not necessary. Price too high. Mr. Harrison smiled and motioned for me to give him the paddle. Just as the fate of number 7 was about to be sealed. Number 7, 120 million. Mr. Harrison called out. The entire room fell silent. Even the mechanical voice paused. My competitor, who had been gloating just a moment ago, immediately deflated. For a moment, no one else bid. Number 7, sold for 120 million. The moment the item was delivered to Mr. Harrison, I asked him, "Aren't you afraid I made a mistake?" Mr. Harrison glanced at it once before handing it to Eleanor, then turned to me and said, "I trust my judgment in people." The bronze vessel was the last item of the night. Only after it was sold did the so-called dinner party officially begin. I carefully replayed every item that had appeared. Without exception, they were all national treasures that had been lost overseas. The very presence of these items at this dinner was strange. Mr. Harrison seemed to see through my thoughts. "Claire, let me ask you to guess. If the real pieces are here, what do you think is sitting in the places where they're supposed to be?" Convincing forgeries. This was what Eleanor meant by top-tier forgery techniques. Someone was secretly replacing the real national treasures in foreign museums with fakes. Then they were smuggled back into the country for this event. Many of tonight's attendees had clearly come prepared. Even with only a 1 in 8 chance, the allure was enough to move them. For the true experts, a single touch was enough to distinguish real from fake. But I saw no sign of frustration from them. Aside from the few who had won real pieces and showed hints of joy, the rest looked completely unfazed. It was as if, for them, this was truly just a dinner party. The preceding gamble had been nothing more than an appetizer. After the dinner, Mr. Harrison had all 3 of the items he'd won sent to my room. Looking at my suddenly crowded coffee table, I thought for a moment, then gathered the items and went to find him. Mr. Harrison was brewing tea, though sadly not golden melon puer. I got straight to the point. These 3 items are too valuable. They should stay with you. In my eyes, these things aren't worth much. Since you won them, you should be the one to decide what to do with them. I can do whatever I want with them? Yes. Mr. Harrison raised his cup. A gift from Russo. Imperial Big Red Robe. Care for a taste? After a cup of tea, a new idea formed in my mind. Can I donate them to the country? After all, these are our country's national treasures that were lost abroad. I chose my words carefully. The look in Mr. Harrison's eyes changed slightly. "Claire, you are even more." He seemed to be searching for the right word. "You have a much bigger perspective than I thought." He smiled, and I smiled back, a little embarrassed. We'll do it your way. I was curious why Mr. Harrison would spend so much money on these antiques only to be so indifferent to them. What, still have something on your mind? Mr. Harrison looked up at me. If you didn't care, why did you bid so high for the bronze vessel after I gave up? Because I could see you really wanted it, but hesitated because of the high price. He stood up and looked me straight in the eye. Claire, sometimes you can't let an antique's monetary value blind you to its other, more important values. If Mr. Harrison hadn't insisted on bidding, I probably wouldn't have had this chance to return them to the nation. What about you? What is it that you want? You don't seem to care about money, and even priceless antiques don't faze you. I've lived a long time, seen too many wonderful things, and have more wealth than I could spend in several lifetimes. I don't have many ambitions left, just a lingering obsession. I wanted to ask more, but Mr. Harrison waved his hand. It's late. Go get some rest. We're heading back tomorrow morning. Before leaving, I saw Mr. Russo again. His attitude toward me was completely different from when we first met. He must have found out that the 3 items I'd bid on were all genuine. Oh, Claire, you have to help me appraise some things sometime. I glanced at Mr. Harrison, who nodded, so I smiled and said, just say the word whenever you need me, Mr. Russo. I'll be there. Mr. Russo grinned so wide his eyes became slits. He turned to Mr. Harrison. Harrison, you really hit the jackpot, finding a treasure like Claire. Mr. Harrison was very modest. Just good luck. By the way, how are the preparations for that thing coming along? It's almost time, isn't it? Mr. Russo asked out of the blue. There's not much to prepare. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let nature take its course. True. With Claire's eye, what do we have to fear from them? I vaguely heard my name but had no idea what they were talking about. I just had a faint feeling that something big was about to happen. I never expected that when we got back, Eleanor would be the one to disappear first. On the flight back, I could tell she was preoccupied. I even asked with concern. Sad to leave the beautiful island scenery? Want to stay a few more days? Eleanor shot me an annoyed look. Not everyone is as carefree as you. As soon as we returned to Harrison's Antiques, she locked herself in her room. The next morning, I knocked on her door to invite her out for brunch. There was no answer for a long time. Normally, she would have told me to get lost and not disturb her sleep. I found it strange, knocked a few more times, and when there was still no response, I pushed the door open and went in. The room was empty. The quilt was neatly folded at the foot of the bed. I asked around the shop, but none of the clerks had seen her. She always let me know before she went anywhere so I wouldn't worry. This time, it was as if she had vanished. For several days, my texts went unanswered, and my calls went straight to voicemail. Just as I was about to lose my mind with worry, Mr. Harrison arrived. He rarely came to the shop in person. Given his relationship with Eleanor, he should have been more anxious than anyone. But when I looked at his face, there was no trace of tension. Instead, there was a hint of relief. Claire, from now on, the business at Harrison's is in your hands. Hearing this, I looked at him sharply. You know where Eleanor is, don't you? She's safe right now. You don't need to worry. How can I not worry when I don't even know where she is? I rarely press for details, but my intuition told me something was very wrong. Did something happen to Eleanor? Mr. Harrison sighed. Let me tell you a story. Mr. Harrison's story began 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the antique business in New York was dominated by 2 families, the Joes and the Hughes. North of Fifth Avenue was Joe territory, south was Hugh territory. Back then, Mr. Harrison, Henry Harrison, was just an unknown apprentice under Arthur Hugh. He spent his days running errands for Mr. Hugh. It was hard work, but he learned a lot. One time, Arthur Hugh was closing a deal when the other party suddenly requested a Qing Dynasty Famille Rose porcelain vase. The deal was almost done, he couldn't refuse at this critical juncture. But he was deeply reluctant to part with it. A Qing Dynasty Famille Rose vase was a treasure. A cheap one wouldn't do, and the ones that would were all priceless. As he agonized over the decision, Henry Harrison stepped forward. Boss, leave this to me. Arthur Hugh had a faint impression of the young man. He agreed, though with some skepticism. When Henry returned with the item from the shop, Arthur Yu was still anxious. But when he opened the box, he feigned a pained smile. Henry, you're too generous bringing out such a fine piece. Henry had brought a late Qing dynasty famille rose vase. It mimicked the techniques of the Qianlong era, but its price was dozens of times lower. Only a true connoisseur could tell the difference. Arthur Yu, being an old fox, understood immediately. Thanks to that vase, Arthur Yu closed a massive deal. And Henry Harrison caught his eye. Arthur Yu started taking him everywhere. Over time, Henry met Arthur's daughter, Cecilia Yu. Cecilia had just returned from studying abroad and was full of curiosity about antiques. She would often run to Henry with priceless treasures and beg, "Henry, tell me about this one." Everyone else called him by his last name. Only Cecilia, her eyes curving into crescents, called him Henry. As time went on, Henry realized he had fallen in love with Cecilia. But he knew Arthur Yu would never approve of them being together. Cecilia was already engaged to Warren Zhou of the Zhou family. The wedding was planned for the following year, when the Yu and Zhou families were set to begin a business collaboration. Henry began to consciously avoid Cecilia. But Cecilia sought him out. "Henry, have you been busy lately? I haven't seen you in a while." Henry mumbled an excuse. "Yes, it's been quite busy. You know, with the end of the year approaching." "You're lying." Cecilia glared at him with her round, almond-shaped eyes. "I asked my dad. He said he didn't assign you anything. You requested to help out at the shop yourself." The shop was short-staffed. "Are you avoiding me?" Caught, Henry panicked, his eyes darting around. "No." "Then why can't you look at me?" Cecilia stared at him, her gaze so direct it was impossible to escape, leaving him flustered and unnerved. "Henry Harrison, are you in love with me?" It was the first time she had used his full name. Henry didn't deny it. He only told her, "You already have a fiancé." Cecilia, a high society lady, cursed for the first time. "To hell with the fiancé. I don't even know what he looks like. The one I love is you." Henry was stunned. No one could refuse a rose in winter. They began a secret relationship. But their happiness was short-lived. Soon, someone saw them and reported it to Arthur Yu. Arthur was furious, declaring that someone like Henry was not worthy of his daughter. He immediately drove Henry away and confined Cecilia to the house. After being cast out, Henry, by a stroke of luck, bought the toad with the coin and sold it for a fortune. With that money and his exceptional eye, he gradually established himself in New York's antique circle. Arthur Yu no longer opposed his relationship with Cecilia. He even considered training Henry to be his successor. But just then, Cecilia's fiancé appeared. Warren Zhou, now the head of the Zhou family, produced the engagement contract signed by their families years ago and demanded that Cecilia marry him. Cecilia, of course, refused. So Warren proposed a wager with Henry. The prize was Cecilia. Henry hesitated. But it was Cecilia who accepted. "I lost that bet." Mr. Harrison calmly stated the outcome. He sat with me in the courtyard, his eyes fixed on the starless night sky, as if the person he longed to see was hidden there. "Cecilia must have passed away by now, right? Is Eleanor her daughter?" Mr. Harrison nodded. Cecilia honored the agreement and married Warren Zhou. He didn't treat her well. He only wanted her because he couldn't stand the idea of something that belonged to him ending up with someone else. After Eleanor was born, Cecilia was consumed by depression and passed away not long after. A beloved rose withering so suddenly, it was a pain no one should have to endure. Because of this, Mr. Yu hated the Zhou family. Before he died, he handed over the entire Yu family business to me. He said his last wish was to see the Zhou family fall. The wind picked up, making the shadows of the trees dance on the ground. Unfortunately, Mr. Harrison's voice suddenly grew hoarse, like a rusty, dull knife hacking at a dead branch. The Zhou family's empire was too vast. All these years, I've never been able to shake their foundation. What about Eleanor? Does she know all this? Warren had no affection for Eleanor. As soon as Cecilia was gone, he sent her to an orphanage. When I found out, I went and brought her back, raising her as my own. From the moment she could understand, I told her the story of her past. Mr. Harrison gave a bitter smile. She has always known. If I'm not mistaken, she's gone back to her biological father now, right? Why? She had a reason she couldn't refuse. Mr. Harrison looked at me. Because the second wager between me and Warren Zhou is in 10 days. The day before we left for the island, Warren had found Eleanor. The Zhou family had their own cemetery, and Cecilia, having married into the family, was buried there. He told Eleanor that if she agreed to come back and help him, he would allow her to move Cecilia's grave. He knew it was something Eleanor had always wanted. As expected, Eleanor had agreed. Claire, in 10 days, the person standing opposite you in this wager will be Eleanor. 10 days flew by. I put on a white t-shirt and jeans and got into Mr. Harrison's car. The location for this 30 years in the making wager between Mr. Harrison and Warren Zhou was the lakeside pavilion by the park. To ensure fairness, both sides had invited 5 witnesses. All of them were titans of the antique world. To my surprise, Mr. Russo was among them. The moment he saw me, he started winking and making faces. Utterly undignified. Eleanor was already there. She was wearing a qipao again, and the jadeite Buddha pendant around her neck was another priceless piece with a long string of zeros. I looked at her. It was the same familiar, stunningly beautiful face. She smiled at me. Claire, long time no see. Just as I was about to greet her. So this is the little girl Harrison found? Doesn't look like much. A greasy, annoying voice cut in. From the tone, it had to be Warren Zhou. Warren Zhou was an old man with a greasy comb over that was deeply unsettling. He walked up behind Eleanor and patted her shoulder. Our Eleanor would never lose to someone like this. To spite him, I deliberately put on an arrogant air. I wouldn't be so sure about that, old man. Your eyesight might be failing in your old age. I heard several chuckles from behind me. Warren Zhou, having lost face, flushed red and purple with anger. We'll see how long you can keep that smug look on your face. Longer than you, I'm sure. Mr. Harrison came over with a smile and pulled me away. All right, Claire, let's not waste our breath on people like him. After a while, everyone had arrived. Director Evans from the museum briefly explained the rules. Best 2 out of 3. As for the stakes, Director Evans indicated that Mr. Harrison and Warren Zhou should announce them. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and declared in a resonant voice, "Let's wager our entire fortunes, plus the Zhou family's ancestral plaque, the Master's Eye. How about it?" His words caused an uproar. I knew Mr. Harrison didn't care about these material possessions. But Warren Zhou was a different story. The Zhou family had been expanding for years, with business ventures overseas. I'd heard about their ancestral plaque. It was said to bear the imperial seal of the Kangxi Emperor. Judging by the look on his face, he was clearly reluctant. Mr. Harrison looked at Warren calmly. 30 years ago, Mr. Zhou, you promised me that I would set the stakes for our next wager. You're not thinking of going back on your word, are you? Warren was trapped. He had no choice but to agree. As you wish, Mr. Harrison. I can afford to lose. He then let out a deliberate, cold snort. Director Evans looked at me and then at Eleanor. May we begin? Eleanor and I nodded at the same time. For the first round, 50 ruware porcelain pieces of various shapes were neatly arranged on the table. Ruware was born from a dream of Emperor Huizong of the Song dynasty. The color of the sky where the clouds break after the rain. The porcelain fired in Ru Kills was world-renowned for its unique sky blue glaze. After the fall of the Northern Song dynasty, the Ru Kills were lost, and only a very small number of pieces survived. I could see at a glance that at least 30 or 40 of the 50 pieces on the table had values under 10,000. They were fakes. These 50 ruware pieces are a mix of genuine and fake. You have 5 minutes. The person who selects the most genuine pieces wins. The moment Director Evans finished speaking, I unhesitatingly reached for a sky blue glazed, double dragon-handled vase in the top left corner. Eleanor immediately followed, taking a sky blue glazed brush washer. Thankfully, the round was about quantity, not value. The piece she took was worth far more than mine. For the next few minutes, it was as if we had an unspoken agreement, trading picks back and forth. I took a long-necked vase. She took a foliate-rimmed bottle. I took a 3-legged censer. She took a 3-legged goblet. By now, there were no more genuine pieces on the table. Eleanor stopped. But right in front of her, I picked up one more piece, a vase with string-patterned reliefs. Claire and Eleanor have both found 3 genuine pieces. It seems this round will be a draw. Director Evans announced the result with a smile. Hearing it was a draw, Eleanor seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Warren Joe was not happy. "How can it be a draw?" he shouted. "Director Evans, you need to look more carefully." "Director Evans, perhaps you could take another look at my string pattern vase," I said. Everyone, including the director, was surprised that I spoke up. He picked up the vase and examined it again. This vase has a solid grayish body and thin walls, which at first glance resembles roux ware craftsmanship. However, true roux ware was glazed with agate, which gives it an iridescent sheen in the sun. This one does not have that, so it is a forgery. I smiled, took the vase from him, and simply let it go. With a crash, it shattered on the floor. I squatted down and picked up a relatively intact shard. I handed it to Director Evans. "How about you take another look at this piece? It should be the base of the vase." Director Evans took out a magnifying glass and examined it for a long time. Suddenly, he shot up from his seat. "This base is genuine roux ware." Warren Joe snatched it away in disbelief, stared at it for a long time, and was finally left speechless. From the start, I had noticed this vase. It was the only one with 2 values floating over it. 9800 on the body, and 1768000 on the base. I looked at the others in the room. Almost all of them wore expressions of utter disbelief. Probably even the people who prepared these items never expected such an accidental combination. Because of that genuine base, I won the first round. The second round was to arrange several old objects in chronological order. Unsurprisingly, I lost. I could see the value of things, but I didn't know which dynasty they came from. Even after cramming so much knowledge during my time at Harrison's, I was no match for Eleanor's decades of accumulated experience. The third round, calligraphy and paintings. The most valuable items in the antique world aren't the ancient objects buried for thousands of years, nor the various porcelains that even modern technology can't replicate. They are the one-of-a-kind original works of famous masters. Director Evans called on Mr. Russo for help. With extreme care, they hung up about 10 scrolls. For a moment, I was blinded by a sea of zeros. Given that Claire and Eleanor have each one a round, this third round is crucial. The works before you are all genuine, without a doubt. Choose one. Whoever selects the more valuable piece wins this round, Director Evans announced. My eyes lit up. It was as if my teacher had just told me before an exam, "You're the only one who gets to use your textbook." I squinted and examined each scroll with intense focus. My main goal was to count which one had the most zeros. The more I looked, the more my mind was blown. They had really gone all out for today's wager. It seemed these tycoons had brought out their most treasured possessions. Just Huang Tingjian's Di Zhu Ming hand scroll and Wang Shiji's Ping and Tai hand scroll. Together, those two were worth over 700 million. And here they were, displayed right in front of me. But even these were not the most valuable. After careful consideration, my eyes landed on one particular scroll. An endless string of zeros floated above it. To confirm my suspicion, I leaned in and took a subtle sniff. This was it. Tang Yin's Quiet Mountains and Long Days. At the same time, Eleanor chose another of Tang Yin's paintings, Viewing the Waterfall at Mount Lu. As soon as the choices were made, Warren Joe burst out laughing. I thought Harrison had found some incredible expert. Doesn't she even know about Viewing the Waterfall at Mount Lu? It's Tang Yin's most expensive painting. To choose another Tang Yin against it, what were you thinking? Who said I chose the painting? Hearing this, Warren laughed even louder. Is this girl losing her mind because she knows she's lost? I picked up the scroll, examined it, and noticed that the scroll axle could indeed be detached. With a bit of skillful force, I pulled it out. Amidst Mr. Russo's gasp of horror, I tossed it into a nearby fish tank. The axle quickly sank to the bottom. My treasure! Mr. Russo lunged forward, his hand reaching for the axle in the tank. It's millennium-aged agarwood, Mr. Russo. Take your time. A little soak will do it good. I quipped with a smile. The moment I threw the axle into the fish tank, Warren's laughter died, and his face sank along with it. Quiet mountains and long days plus millennium-aged Agarwood. I wonder if that's enough to compete with a viewing the waterfall at Mount Lu. Warren, his face dark, roared at Mr. Russo. Russo, are you out of your damn mind? Why would you use millennium-aged Agarwood for a scroll axle? Mr. Russo shot him a contemptuous look. Because I felt like it. What's it to you? Just as the two men, who were a combined century old, were about to start a brawl, Director Evans stepped between them. Claire wins this round. And Claire wins the overall wager. Mr. Harrison stood up at the perfect moment, his gaze cold as he looked at Warren. Mr. Zhou, you've lost. Honor the bet. Epilogue. After losing the wager, Warren Zhou tried to renege on the deal. But all the witnesses were powerful figures in the same circle. They had been waiting for a reason to move against him for years. Now that he had made a public agreement, they wouldn't let him back out. Before long, the Zhou family's antique business began to crumble for one reason or another. Their capital chain broke, and with his reputation ruined, no one dared to lend Warren money. One moonless night, Mr. Harrison and his men quietly replaced the Master's eye plaque with one that read The Master of Lies. The next day, Warren reportedly saw it and stood at his door, cursing for an entire hour. Eleanor got her wish and moved Cecilia's grave. She returned to Harrison's antiques. I asked her if she really couldn't see the obvious Agarwood, if she had thrown the match on purpose. She stood under the whitewood tree in the courtyard, her long hair blowing in the wind, and smiled innocently. I honestly didn't see that it was Agarwood, Claire. You won fair and square. I think you're really cut out for this business. So I'm planning to retire. Don't even think about it. Didn't Mr. Harrison already say the business at Harrison's is yours now? Mr. Harrison had said that, yes. But how did she know? I finally understood. The woman had been planning to dump her responsibilities on me all along. That night, I got a call from Mr. Harrison. He asked if the copper pot was still around. He had just gotten some fresh lamb. How about hot pot? A cool breeze rustled the leaves, and the shadows of the trees swayed. The three of us sat in the courtyard. A familiar scene, but a different state of mind. Mr. Harrison brought not only lamb but also aged, fine wine. Come, Claire, let me toast you 3 times. My hand holding the glass trembled. Why 3 toasts? Mr. Harrison roared with laughter. It was the first time I had ever seen him laugh so freely. The first toast is to our meeting. All things in this life are the result of karma from a past life. Tell me, Claire, did I save your life in a previous existence, for heaven to send you to help me in this one? He drained his glass and motioned that I didn't have to finish mine. Eleanor doesn't drink, so the second toast is on behalf of her and Cecilia. Eleanor raised a cup of tea, drinking it as if it were wine. The third toast is to thank you in advance for looking after my businesses. I plan to take Eleanor traveling, to see the beautiful world that Cecilia never got to see. This third toast, could I really refuse? The next day, before the sun was even up, Eleanor was gone, dragging a large suitcase behind her. Unlike last time, she made a point of coming to tell me, waking me from a pleasant dream in the process. In the weeks that followed, I received postcards from her from all over the country. After that wager, I became a well-known figure in the New York antique scene. From time to time, people would show up at my door, asking me to appraise their items. Boss Claire, eating roast duck again? Could you spare a moment to look at this pot for me? Coming. The end.